Did you know that you could have celiac disease of the skin or celiac disease of the brain in addition to or independent of celiac disease of the gut? I'm Dr. John Bartemus, and I'm putting the pieces together to help you live a life at optimal. How can this occur? You've only ever heard of celiac disease of the gut. Celiac disease causes massive vomiting or diarrhea or bloody stools if someone has celiac disease and consumes wheat or gluten. That would be the gut response. If you have celiac disease in the skin, that's known as dermatitis herpetiformis, and that would manifest as you consume gluten or consume wheat, and you get very itchy and maybe develop skin lesions over the extensor surfaces of large joints. Celiac disease of the brain manifests as maybe you consume wheat or gluten and you have a brain fog. Or for me personally, if I consume wheat or gluten, it doesn't affect my gut that I can tell, but immediately behind my eyes starts to burn and I'll get a brain fog and just be like, power down, like, okay, let's take a nap. I don't want to do this. So the neurologic symptoms are more along that way. And there's some evidence to show that the most common response to gluten or wheat is the neurologic symptoms, even more common than the gut symptoms. So how can this happen? Well, celiac disease is based on an autoimmune process against a family of enzymes called tissue transglutaminase. And there are multiple different forms of it, but what these enzymes do is they provide scaffolding or structural support to barrier systems like your gut barrier or your lung barrier or your blood-brain barrier or your skin barrier. So they're proteins that are providing barrier support and kind of scaffolding to help structures stand up. And so what can happen is you can develop autoimmune processes against the enzymes or against the tissue transglutaminase. So in gut celiac or celiac disease proper, which is known as the gut form, the autoimmunity is against tissue transglutaminase 2. In the skin, it's against tissue transglutaminase 3. And in the brain, it's against tissue transglutaminase 6. And there's some crossover in the brain from tissue transglutaminase 3 as well. So since they're of the same family, they share what's called sequence homology, or they all look similar. Like my 4 kids, if you look at them, you know they're all in the same family. They're not identical, but you can say, hey, those are Bartemus kids. Same idea with the tissue transglutaminases. They're not all the same, but they're close enough that you know what family they're a part of. So if your immune system goes haywire enough to go against or respond against one form of tissue transglutaminase, it's not hard and not a far cry for the epitope spreading to occur for it to then see a different form of tissue transglutaminase and react or respond against it. And this is why you may start with one autoimmune disease and then it snowballs to others if you don't manage your immune system and your issues properly. So today's video is to educate you that just because you can consume gluten and it doesn't bother your gut does not mean that it doesn't bother you at all. It may be affecting your skin if you're having skin conditions. It may be affecting your cognition or your mood, like it does me if you have neurocognitive issues after eating it. So just because you don't have vomiting, diarrhea, or bloody stools after consuming gluten doesn't mean that you're in the clear. So pay attention moving forward and say, if you are consuming it, pay attention to whether or not you notice gut symptoms and or skin symptoms and or neurocognitive symptoms after consuming gluten or wheat. And if you do, then you should work on removing it for a period of time and notice if those symptoms go away. And if they do, then you have your answer. You should avoid that food and replace it with foods that do not cause symptoms.